Hello, my name is Darren Woodfork. I'm an attorney here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And if you're new to the channel, my practice here focuses on personal injury work here. I restore people's gun rights here in Arizona, and I sealed old criminal cases here in Arizona. If you've already seen the channel and you're subscribed to the channel, thank you and welcome back. Today I want to talk about something that I think is pretty interesting. If you've ever seen on YouTube Andrew Huberman, I think he's a doctor. Maybe a neuroscientist or something like that. But anyways, he's a doctor. He gives advice on medical conditions or medical issues on the internet. And so I thought about it when you're a professional, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, or any other professional, and you're talking on the internet, on YouTube, just like I am here. It's as the viewer, as the audience, basically you have to take it for kind of like what it's worth. And I've always thought of, what I say on YouTube or on my videos, it's kind of like what I tell people at parties and stuff. It's kind of informal when people ask me legal questions. I always say kind of informally what my answer is. They always ask me, kind of like, what should you do when you're stopped for a DUI? Should you do the walk-in turn test, or should you consent to a blood test? By the way, I always tell everybody, essentially, don't do the walk and turn test, but do consent to the blood draw. But nevertheless, it's always things like that. It's kind of like informal cocktail party type stuff. And what we're usually doing as professionals anyway, as a lawyer, at least what I'm doing, is on my website, on this channel, anywhere else that I post content, it's always essentially what the facts are in the law. It's kind of like, here's what the law is, here's what the law says. I talk about my experiences, with everything coming out of my mouth is basically from an old case, essentially, and my experience with that. And so that's kind of what I say as far as what was factual, on the record. And I think the difference, and the reason why I bring this up, is if you're a doctor or a lawyer, what you're paid to do and what you're hired to do is to give advice. And the difference between that, and we learned this in law school, actually, I think it was the second year of law school, they say the lawyer is paid for the word should. And basically that means, what should you do? Not what is, not what happened, what should you do? That's what you're being paid for as a lawyer. When somebody asks what should they do, that's when the lawyer's malpractice insurance kicks in. Any answer that they give to that should question, if it drops below the standard of a lawyer, the medical malpractice could be issued and they could be sued for malpractice. Same thing with a doctor. If a doctor does something that drops below the doctor's standard, then they can be sued for malpractice. And malpractice is well into the 5 figures if you're a lawyer practicing for 20 plus years. But so when you hire a lawyer, when you actually pay a lawyer to represent you, you're attaching their medical malpractice insurance, and the lawyer knows that the advice that they give you has got to be perfect, because you're their client. A contrast to the internet, where you're making a video or you're putting information on your blog, there's no attorney-client relationship, and so then you kind of just take it for what it's worth, basically. And again, it's usually just the facts of what the law is, what it is. There's usually not a whole lot of should in free content online. I remember when I first started practicing law, when I first opened my own firm, I remember one of the lawyers in my office said, he said, don't ever give away for free what people pay for, meaning legal advice. I think that's a little antiquated. I think that's kind of this was 25 years ago, whatever. But I think now you have to kind of give information for free. Obviously, I do it on this channel, but you have to give just basic information for free, just to educate the public. And so that's kind of what it is now. But again, we're trying to stay away as lawyers and doctors, and that as professionals, we're trying to stay away from the word should. Here's what you should do, what you shouldn't do, as opposed to here's what the law is, here's what happened, factual things. So anyways, again, when you're listening to me or you're listening to Andrew Huberman or you listen to anybody else on the internet, especially like the professionals, Kind of take it for what it's worth, because there's no attorney-client relationship there. Nothing's been established. You haven't paid for anybody. Nothing's been signed, anything. So the information you're getting is pretty generic. It's pretty basic. It surely doesn't apply to you specifically. And so, take it for what it's worth when you're listening to myself or any of these guys on the internet talking about, professional stuff, essentially. It reminds me of kind of like the internet. If you know anything about internet and how much money you make on websites and things like that, or not really how much money you make, but what you can post on the internet. There's something called your money or your life, and that's basically whenever you're talking about health, your life, or you're talking about money, your finances, the internet is very suspect, and like YouTube or Google or whatever, they really are pretty critical when you talk about that type of stuff, the issues that talk about your money, that could affect your money and your health. So anyways, but again, this all kind of goes back to what I said. If you're going to get legal advice or you're going to get medical advice, hire somebody, a professional. Then you're getting tailor-made advice, and that person's malpractice insurance has kicked in. And so if there's some reason that advice falls below the standard of a normal lawyer or doctor or whatever, then you can sue their malpractice insurance. But that's why that's why you pay a lawyer to represent you. So anyways, hope that helps, or hope that was interesting anyway. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.